Guidance is internal. Ignition sequence starts. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Permission to board. Permission to come aboard. Permission to board. Permission to bring me aboard. Permission to come aboard.
Welcome to the Permission Granted podcast. Here's DA.
Actually, here's Mraz. That's right. Mraz leading you in here on the Permission Granted podcast. That is me, DA, at Citi Field here celebrating games 3 and 4 of the National League Division Series as his beloved Metsies are rolling versus the Los Angeles Dodgers, or at least he hopes they're rolling by the time some of you guys listen here on the Permission Granted podcast. A lot of fascinating stuff coming up for you here on the podcast. Joltin Joe is back from Green Bay from his trip. He met Pac-Fan Joel, apparently. We're going to get to talk to him about that and talk to him about his experience at Lambeau over the weekend as the Packers beat the Rams. DA is going to join me via phone. Now, Citi Field, the first time Citi Field in Queens has had a playoff game for the Mets since it opened in 2009, and he went to Game 3, rolling around to Game 4. Going to ask him what the atmosphere was like and the booing of Chase Utley. Remember, you guys could check us out on SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/DA Show. DA on CBS.com. If you click the Audio Insider page right there, you could find our podcast as well as all the other stuff from the show and all the other nonsense. And the blogs are right there on DA on CBS.com. Coming up next, DA has pre-recorded an interview with you, if you will, with Joey Levy. Now, Joey Levy's an interesting story. He is the CEO of DraftPot.com. And now, if you don't know what DraftPot.com is, that's fine, because I was a little unsure of what it was a couple weeks ago myself. Now, we all know the advertisements we've heard. FanDuel, DraftKings, they're out and about. Now, FanDuel and DraftKings, for you 90s kids there, are like Backstreet Boys and NSYNC. DraftPot is attempting to be the 98 Degrees, if you will. And Joey Levy's a young kid, went with his buddies from Columbia and started this daily fantasy league to kind of jump in the fray. And with the magnifying glass that daily fantasy has been under with regulations and such, we found it would be an interesting time to talk to Joey and see what, as a young guy like that with his upstart company, what they're doing to maintain the integrity and make sure what's going on over with DraftKings FanDuel isn't happening with them. So Joey Levy will be coming up here next with DA. So again, check us out on SoundCloud. Check us out online, DA on CBS.com. And here it is. Joey Levy, DraftPot.com with DA.
Pleased to be joined by the CEO and the co-founder of a daily fantasy website called DraftPot. It's Joey Levy, and he joins us here on the show. Joey, how are you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me on.
You got it, man. You got an interesting story. Obviously, with everything that's been going on with daily fantasy over the last week, all daily fantasies in the crosshairs. When you saw that story pop, insider trading between FanDuel and DraftKings, did you go, oh, crap?
Not really. I mean, after further investigation, it was very clear that this was not an instance of insider trading. However, what this has served is a profound wake-up call for everybody in the industry, really. When you're dealing with billions of dollars of entry fees, when you're dealing with companies at billion-dollar valuations, incredible growth, any mishap is going to be met with pretty incredible scrutiny, I would say. So really, I think it was a moment for the industry to self-reflect and figure out how they wanted to deal with this issue. Even if there wasn't any sort of fraudulent behavior or insider trading, how are we going forward going to prevent something like this, or the presumption of something like this happening, from happening again? Because it's really an industry based on credibility, and certainly this wasn't good in that regard.
It's interesting because I think this year, for the first time, the general audience kind of saw DraftKings and FanDuel because they spend so much money on marketing. And so something that was kind of seemingly growing very slowly, this year seemed to just explode when football season began. And there was so much advertising that was the story. Like, where did these guys come from? They must be making money hand over fist. And so it was almost a perfect storm, right? Because, they were suddenly in the nation's consciousness. They were in the media's consciousness. They had bought every media known to man. And then within the first month and a half of the football season, we had a story. It was almost like if they had not been so front and center with the advertising, it seems like it wouldn't have gotten as much traction. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I can understand the perfect storm analogy. People have actually, even before this, were really complaining about the advertising, suggesting that they couldn't watch a program.
There's like a lot of backlash over it in September.
Yeah, I mean, they couldn't watch a football game without seeing these ads after every punt or whatever it may be. So, yeah, I mean, that combined with the events of earlier this week turned out to be not so favorable to these two companies in the media. But like I said, I feel like they're really doing a good job of increasing transparency moving forward, putting systems in place to ensure that stuff like this does not happen again, and also retroactively checking everything to ensure that things like this weren't happening in the past. I can only thoroughly comment on what we're doing. When this news broke out, we that morning we issued a statement. I emailed all of our employees explicitly prohibiting them from participating in any daily fantasy sports contests on any other website while employed by DraftPot. Failure to comply with that would result in immediate dismissal from the company.
And how many employees was that?
We have 10 full-time employees now, so we're far smaller than our competitors, but we got started a few months ago. We've grown pretty quickly. But yeah, and it was actually tough for some people because people who work for us are passionate about fantasy sports, so prohibiting them from participating.
Right, because they can't bet with you guys. They can't play with you guys.
Yeah, for sure.
So, and then if they can't play anywhere else, then they're involved in an industry that they really can't partake in.
That is correct. Yeah.
You know, it kind of exploded, and you're a young guy. I mean, are you currently enrolled at Columbia?
No, I'm me and my two co-founders, the three of us were undergrads. We took a leave of absence.
Yeah. So you have kind of created this at 20 years old and are kind of jumping in full feet at 2 feet and full steam ahead. It kind of seemed like this is a relatively new phenomenon. When did you kind of get the bug like, oh, you know what? I think this is where daily fantasy is. I think this is where fantasy is going and daily fantasy.
Yeah, I got the idea for DraftPot after receiving a call from my uncle who was calling me after watching an advertisement from one of our competitors. And he was calling me because he was asking for directions as to how to use their site.
Right, he didn't know how to use it. And so you were like, oh, okay, this is maybe a common problem. And how long ago was that? A couple of years ago? Or?
No, that was last year.
Okay, last football season?
Last... or it may have been a little bit earlier than that over the summer.
So almost like within a year, you were like, let's try to find some beta testing and try to get some software going on.
So we got serious about it earlier this year, actually. We launched a prototype in late January, and from there we just continued to develop the product, continued to raise money from investors because we're going up against two behemoths. You need some capital to support any sort of traction in this industry. And we launched our existing product just in time for the football season, and we paid out over $1 million in September to our players, and that number should grow over the course of October, and that certainly pales in comparison to our two largest competitors right now, but we're growing very quickly, and we feel like we can make a run for number 3 or number 4 in this industry in the long run, which this will be a $20 billion industry or so very soon, as many experts suggest. So being at the top of the industry would be a very good outcome for all of us.
So, you're 20 years old, your co-founders, all the guys, the brains behind this are sophomores in college, and you go, you know what, let's go into a $1 billion industry or a multi-billion dollar industry, and you're trying to raise capital and try to raise investment money. You got a mop top of hair there. You're not even legal to drink. Do you ask people for money and they go, dude, you're 20 years old? No, actually, they wouldn't say dude because they're probably 65 years old and millionaires are 100 millionaires. Do you get weird looks when you ask for money like that?
I think it was really a matter of, I understood because I'm coming into this with no track record of really anything. I was a student. We were going to have to build a product that spoke for itself, and engage in acquisition efforts with our very limited budget so that our numbers could speak for themselves. And that's exactly what happened. We developed a product that fundamentally differentiated itself in a very crowded industry with many identical products. We gained good initial traction, and I think investors were able to quickly realize that we were able to build something special with little to no resources, really just our human capital. And we continue to prove that even with a little bit of money, especially with respect to our competitors, we're able to build something special that thousands of users are using on a daily basis now.
See, here's what I think the biggest threat to your industry is that through more knowledge about daily fantasy, the average user that wants to spend $50 a weekend, all right, $25 a weekend, $100 over a month, is going to realize, wait a second, I don't have nearly the wherewithal to challenge or compete against these guys that are doing it professionally, because there are those everywhere doing daily fantasy that are spending 18 hours a day creating algorithms and programs and buying thousands of sets of rosters and so they're stacking the deck, for themselves. So I think do you think that that's the biggest threat? How do you convince the average Joe that goes, well, I want to play against my buddies like a regular fantasy football league instead of playing against these sharks?
So I think that, that's undoubtedly a threat to the industry. Users consistently losing money is not good for user retention. So we had that very much in mind when developing DraftPot. We developed the first no salary cap format in the industry that didn't change the gameplay. We simply lifted the salary cap from the existing lineup selection process. And what that's done is it's leveled the playing field. Users can pick whoever they want. These so-called sharks are not able to use a site operator's salary cap system to figure out which players are undervalued and which ones are not. So we feel like we've leveled the playing field. Initial numbers regarding the distribution of profitability on our site is suggesting that we have. And I feel like that's really the core reason why we've been able to grow so quickly. Our retention is really good because a large portion of our users are really enjoying our product, and a larger portion than other sites are winning money.
So you guys were all at Columbia here in New York City. This is the type of thing that I would imagine is a Silicon Valley type thing, where a bunch of young guys create something online and they need investment money and capital, and they've got to be in the Bay Area to try to do this in Silicon Valley. Are you guys out there already? Is that the plan? What's going on?
I mean, a lot of people are starting to refer to New York as Silicon Alley because there's there's a lot of venture capital coming into New York. A lot of really great entrepreneurs who are proving to be able to execute upon their ideas and develop great products that get traction are coming out of the city. It's really encouraging. I don't think that we should live in a society where all of these investment dollars and really a culture of innovation is sort of concentrated in one place. So I think it's good that there's a place on the East Coast where this is becoming ingrained in our culture, and we're very happy to be a part of that. And we plan on staying in New York for the foreseeable future. Yeah,
a bunch of 20-year-olds just want to hang out in New York City. You guys just don't want to go and live in the suburbs in Silicon Valley, and so you'll try to make it work here.
Yeah, we'll make it work.
The bars are open later here. That's basically the key.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, personally, I haven't gone out very much ever since starting this venture. We're really keeping our heads down, but hopefully at the end of the day, there will be some time to party, and I do need to turn 21 first before engaging in such activities.
Sure, of course, because nobody would ever engage in such activities before the age of 21.
Absolutely not.
I don't know, man. Having watched bios on Steve Jobs and Microsoft and Apple and all the Silicon Valley successes, those guys got after it real early, and they didn't wait to be 21. They didn't wait. They were doing that while they were developing the technology. So I'm not encouraging that behavior, but it has been done before to success.
Sure.
Joey Levy is the co-founder and the CEO of DraftPot Daily Fantasy. so you can check him out online as well. And a number of the stories about daily fantasy has been swirling around over the last week. So good to have you here on the show. Joey, congratulations and everything, and good luck, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, great conversation with Joey Levy, the CEO, the young CEO of DraftPot.com, with DA as they discussed everything going on here in recent conversation with the daily fantasy leagues. DA taking a couple days off here to head to Citi Field to see his beloved Mutts. I was going to call them the Mets, I guess we'll call them by their real name. The Metropolitans play in the postseason for the first time in a long, long time. But DA, happy enough to grace us with his presence via phone. DA, how you doing?
I'm good, Mraz. I know that was a Freudian slip. I know you think of my Mets as Mutts.
I've certainly been referring to them a lot lately like that. So you popped into game one. How electric was the crowd?
Man, it was cool. And, it was really, really, I think, important for me to be there. And I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Because doing our job, you see a lot of the crap of sports, and we talk a lot about the crap of sports, and guys that are criminals or owners that are delusional or scandals or Deflategate or whatnot. And you hear fans and you hear coaches and you hear players and you get annoyed and you just can tend to get jaded. And I just last night kind of needed a real fan moment, and I got like the complete fan moment. I went out there. I was out, the parking lot opened up at it was supposed to open up at about 4:30. I drove around by about 3 and took a page out of your book, and they were already letting people in. So I got into the tailgate early, got into the parking lot early, set up the whole spread, multiple tables, had the grill going on, food, a cooler of beers. We did shrimp tacos. We did sausage, kielbasa. We had it all going on, chips and salsa and beers and wine. I mean, we had everything. My dad broke out the stogies. Like it was, and everybody was tailgating, and I was like, we got to go in early. Like you were saying when you went to Dallas, got to get in early, got to get to the seats.
Right.
And I just stood there, and we were sitting in center field, which was awesome, amongst like the crazy center field fans, sitting at the national anthem, and everyone's wearing orange or blue. I mean, I don't know if there was a Dodger fan in the place. There was 44,000 people there. I didn't see one Dodgers T-shirt or hat or anything. And I was like, this is just pure fandom. There was no press box. There was no, secret entrance. There was no get there early for locker room. It was just straight fan. And I was like, dude, this was everything. This was just the best. And now, of course, how it played out was amazing. But I think I really needed that to like unjade myself.
You know what? I like that, and I like that you went that route. Now, for me, before I went to Dallas earlier in the month, and then we went to the Giants-Redskins game on that Thursday night, I hadn't gone to a game without a press pass in a while. I think I went to one Yankee game earlier in the season. I think it was a Yankee-Met game. And, we get very used to, in our position, unlike the fans, going to the press box, wearing nice clothes, can't cheer, can't do that. It's really cool to get back in that moment and be a fan. And I'm glad you got to do that. Now, I need to ask, though, did you totally deck out professionalism, or were you joining in the We Want Utley chants?
Oh, I did the We Want Utley chant. Every chant that we had going on, I was totally into. And the only thing was, like, my dad lost his voice. I was able to get 4 tickets last night, and I've got 5 people in my family, and so we had to split them up. So I'm going to both games, and I got my brother and my sister and my dad came last night, and then tonight I've got my mom, my girlfriend, and my cousin Mike, who's like as big a Mets fan as I know. So we had to split them up. So last night my dad lost his voice. I mean, Papa Mendo was like out of control, and we were hugging strangers in center field. I'm like, this is game 3 of the NLDS. People are hugging, people are crying. I'm like, oh my God, it's too intense. But yeah, I threw professionalism up.
That's great. With loudest part of the game, was it the introductions? Was it the Darno homer? Was it the Granderson hit? Or was it the icing on the cake with the Cespedes homer?
Good question. I was walking in as they were doing the introductions and kind of watching the introductions from the mezzanine level. Like, for those that have been to Citi Field, how you could walk around that field level and watch the field. So we were getting to our seats in center field, and I was watching it, and it was really loud. And obviously, when Utley came up, everybody booed. Like, the place was almost shaking. I think the loudest It probably was the Darno home run, and I was in the bathroom for that.
Are you serious?
Yeah, and it's crazy because in center field, there's bathrooms right in center field near the beer gardens, and I went over there, and it was like 30 guys long. And I was like, I'm not waiting. I can't do that. So I darted over to left field, and that was like 20 guys long. I said, I can't do that. So I hoofed it all the way up to the upper deck.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, and I'm seriously running. I was running through the stadium because I didn't want to miss anything, and I wanted to be in my seat by the time the Mets were at the plate again.
Right. Okay.
So I bolted upstairs, and the upper deck in deep center field had no line. So I was like, okay, cool. And then as I'm in line, I hear this giant roar, and they got the game going on over the loudspeakers in there, and I could hear that it was a home run. I didn't know who hit it, and then I darted back down to my seat, and the place was still going crazy. So I missed the Darno home run. I was in the seat though for the Cespedes, and the Cespedes, the place went wild. But I think the loudest actually was when Grandy cleared the bases.
Right.
When the Mets were down 3-0, because we were barely in the game, and Harvey gives up 3, and you're like, oh my God. And then to get it all back, I think that's when everybody started it to be a party again. So pretty intense.
It's insane. You know what really ticks me off about that story? When they open up all these new stadiums, what's one of the main selling points they give you? They did it for Citi Field. They did it for every new stadium. The more bathrooms, right? And then you still get packed houses, and guess what? You're still waiting forever. It makes no sense.
It is crazy, and I thought the same thing last night. I'm like, I love this new ballpark. I love Citi Field. It's so great. It's got all these amenities, and it even is cooler than Shea. People talk about the nostalgia of Shea. Shea was a dump. It was a crap hole. Let's face it.
Right,
so
right.
I was totally okay going to Citi, getting the new ballpark, but and the new bathrooms are great and they're nice and they're beautiful. But I'm like, this is a playoff game, and it is a 35-person wait to get in the bathroom. That's unacceptable to me. So I don't know. I feel like there's a ton of bathrooms in there, and I guess no matter what, you can never have too many bathrooms because I've never sat on a line that long at that
ridiculous.
field. Then again, I've never been to a lot of sellouts of that field where anything actually mattered. So.
Right. Well, you know what? Also with that stadium, and just to kind of rope this into me being a pig, one thing we've talked about forever on the show is the baseball fair and how baseball has become about, well, what crazy food can you eat at every stadium?
Right.
Now, that's all great on a July day, August day, regular season. You're kind of, just enjoying the ballpark. In a Met game or in a playoff game in general, you're into the game itself. Were these Shake Shack lines still through the roof in game, or were people kind of, all right, I'll eat pregame, but let me focus on the 9 innings here?
I don't think the lines were that long because I didn't notice them. I was so focused on the game. I just focused to my seat, and I got up to go to the bathroom twice, and I got a beer one time because I was like, I need to focus. We're not eating anything. Let's eat everything pregame. So I think if they were super long, I would have noticed. So my guess is they weren't that long. And as you probably saw on TV, this was not kind of this mingling, happy to be there crowd.
No, they were into it.
Everybody was in their seats. It was no walking around the beer garden. They were in their seats. SRO was sold out too. So I think everybody kind of had the same idea. Nobody's. And I guess maybe when it got out of control, maybe people went to go get food, but I think most people were in their seats from the opening pitch.
That's good because you miss a lot of that with baseball. You really do. So I guess you're fired up to get to Game 4. I know when some people listen to this, it'll be after Game 4, but it's a good little 2 days for you.
Yeah, and I caught a little flag from some colleagues that they actually CBS let me take these days off because everyone thinks, well, it's not vacation. You're just going to a baseball game. You got to be on the air. But I'm like, more than going to a beach, more than going to wherever you go on vacation or whatnot, this is what I want to be doing. So I don't know. I kind of want to be on the air, obviously. We've got so much stuff going on in the sports world. At the same time, I'm like, well, I'm taking my vacation because this is what I want to do on my vacation day. So I didn't think of it as a bad look, but I'm getting a little crap from the colleagues.
You know what's interesting? I've actually defended you in the newsroom with this, and listen, anytime I could take a little subtle shot at you, I will. You know that. I'm gonna defend you here because first of all, I'd be a hypocrite if I didn't. I saved 3 days off to take off during Giants Monday and Thursday night games. Number one. Number two, you're entitled to take the time however you want. And it's not like, I'm watered down as a Yankee fan. You don't see this every year. And you were a guy living in Kansas City, Florida, Boston. You're finally back in New York. The Mets are finally in the playoffs for the first time in the 3 years you've been back in New York. You got to make up for some lost time. And on top of that, you don't have the benefit of working during the day or like we used to do in the overnights where you could make it happen in between. You're on during the games. So I have no problem with you using the days there. I actually think that's a good look and makes you look like more of a real fan.
Well, I appreciate that. And that's how I felt. Like when I was living across the country, KC, Boston, Miami, I could come home for like one game a year. So I would go to some meaningless middle of the season game on like a Friday night. It didn't matter. And finally I get to go to games that matter. And on top of it, as you said, like we don't have a schedule that would allow you to do anything else. Like if it was a day game or something and I was taking off the night just to party or whatnot,
right?
I could catch a little bit of flack, but I'm like, there's nothing else. I go, I'm going to be on the air while these games are going on and like be a nervous wreck. And on top of it,
you wouldn't be able to focus anyway. That's why listen, you come back Monday next week. Guess who's not there? Me for Giants Eagles, because I wouldn't be able to focus on the job.
That's a good point. And like, as you said, I don't know when I'm going to see this again. The last time the Mets were in the playoffs was 2006. If every decade I take off 2 days to watch the Mets in the playoffs, I feel like that's okay.
That's okay. Now, did you happen to see what happened, speaking of like my trips, what happened in Dallas after the game on Sunday?
Yeah, dude, this is scary. The shooting outside the stadium?
Insane.
And I guess it was near a hotel? I didn't even know there was a hotel in that
Walmart? There's a Walmart. There's hotel. As I said, I ate at a Jack in the Box for the game. Like the way the stadium's planted, basically, like they built it in the middle of a neighborhood in Arlington. You have the two stadiums there and a Six Flags. So there's all that stuff right there. Like there's really little actual parking lot parking, and everybody just kind of parks in these little like business lots. So I guess it happened on one of those right there.
That's really scary. I mean, I'm bothered by. I was bothered when you told that story about like how dudes were grabbing your wife's arm. That
it was
bothered
insane.
Me.
It was insane.
But now we're talking about shooting people in parking lots. I mean, I don't know if that's just a like scary Dallas thing, but that's really, really worrisome.
I listen, and to get the reports that people are sitting around chanting shoot him, or whatever they were yelling, and egging a guy on who's waving a gun around like what do we do? We're supposed to be going there for enjoyment, entertainment, and even if you get too drunk, if you're getting drunk enough to fire gunshots, that's a problem.
It's a real problem, and I mean, if those reports are true that people were chanting. Man, if I saw a guy waving a gun, I would haul ass as quickly as I could away from there. I would not want to be around some whack job after a game waving a gun around. So does that make any sense to egg him on?
No, and you know what's actually kind of annoying me, and maybe I've missed this, but I've been on the lookout for this. I haven't seen Jerry Jones issue a statement or anything like that since then, and you would think Jerry Jones, who built this stadium to basically be a tourist attraction. He wants the Final Fours there, the Super Bowls there, everything there, and he loves that people travel in, and he knows that Cowboy fans, more so than road fans, live all over the country and come in. You would think he'd want to, speak to this kind of issue and kind of water this down so people continue to not fear for their life when they fly in to go see his beautiful building.
But I wonder if the NFL and Jerry wants to bury this and not give it too much attention. I mean, we always talk about like how disruptive and disappointing it is that there's fan fights, but you never hear the NFL address this ever.
Right.
And I almost wonder if they want to just make it not a big deal so that people don't feel scared to go to games. But yeah, like Jerry talks about everything all the time. He has a radio show, but he has no statement about a guy getting shot in his freaking parking lot.
That's alarming to me. That's alarming. And maybe the NFL does want to bury. And I could honestly say, because I worked Monday while others took off, in the wake of all the football stories and everything that happened with Chase Utley, that really wasn't a blip on the radar. I don't even think Chris Moorfield interview. I don't even think that was a discussion on our show and barely talked about. So maybe the NFL is doing a good enough job burying it. Like, unless you're on Twitter and really reading stuff online, you're not really hearing much talk about it.
Well, I'm a little worried that people look at this stuff as it's just par for the course now. I mean, too many people are getting beat up at games.
I mean, getting shot is par for the course now? Oh.
Well, I just feel like violence at games has become almost expected. And so I wonder, like, where are the people going? I don't want to be scared at a football game. I don't hear enough of an outcry about that. And we talked about it on the show, the lack of security in parking lots.
Right.
It's a joke. And I was just I was thinking about this yesterday as I was at Citi Field. I mean, we were there for 4 hours before the game, and we tailgated after the game, also for about an hour. And it couldn't have been a more kind of like level-headed type of situation. Not that people weren't having fun. People were coming by, grabbing beers, taking pictures, and like, let's go Mets chants. But it wasn't just like aggressive, violent stuff that I think really only happens at football games, right?
Right.
All the violence that we hear is at football games.
Well, I think the thing with football games is twofold. Number one, you have double the amount of fans in any other game because you're packing 80 to 100,000 fans in, so that ups the probabilities. Number two, I think more so than any other game, more fans travel with their football teams. You get more road fans at football games than you do any other sport, in my opinion. And I think just the violence in itself in football just kind of raises the levels up of whether you want to call it testosterone or whatever. And it creates a really weird situation.
Yeah, no, that's a good point because the amount of road fans is always going to be a factor. And also, I think when you go to a football game, it's such an event. You're there all day.
Right.
You're probably pregame drinking for 5 hours or 6 hours or whatnot. Then the game is 4 hours or 3 hours. You're drinking through the whole thing. Whereas a baseball game, it doesn't have that huge event type feel maybe outside of the playoffs. But
right, it's laid back.
Yeah, and then the amount of road fans totally has a huge part in all of that.
Before I let you go, we doing any pumpkin beers at the Met tailgate?
Yeah, I know you were griping about pumpkin beers being too early this year, and I was with you.
Right.
It was too hot to do pumpkin beers for a while, but now there's a little nip in the air. These are 2 night games, and so I said, let's get the tailgate going. I actually carved a Mets pumpkin, which I'll send you a picture of.
Very cool.
I was in like the Spirit, and I grabbed a 12-pack of UFO pumpkin.
Okay, I've had the UFO.
And excellent, because some of them can be too sweet, and some of them you're like, ugh, I only want one of these. But the UFO, I was able to throw down maybe 4 or 5. They were really good. So
now, were you drinking straight out of the bottle, or did you do like a little cinnamon rim situation?
They were canned, so
okay.
I went straight with the can. Yeah, I never do the cinnamon. You really like the cinnamon?
I love the cinnamon. I think it adds a little to it, and plenty of men are doing it now, where you don't feel too like it's a ladies thing to do. So most of the bars do it. It's like a little cinnamon sugar along the rim with the pumpkin beer. It's great.
Pumpkin beer, when the weather's right and you get a good one, it's hard to beat. It really is. How was the show last night with Simo?
Oh, it was good. It was good. I mean, Simo's a big baseball nut, so off of Football Sunday, he was doing a lot of the baseball. Then we got into the football, of course. But it went well. It was, of course, calls were there. It's always good on a football Monday, and especially with people still calling about the Chase Utley play. And now we got a little John Kincaid on a Tuesday night, and away we go.
I mean, how about the Cowboys getting dismantled? Was that the most predictable thing ever? Did you end up nailing all 3 of your picks?
I lost with the Giants laying 7, so I was 2-1. So I'm now 9-1 in my last 3 weeks.
Okay, we'll take that. Making money. Yeah, I mean, I was laughing at Cowboys fans all weekend long because they're trying to tell me that it's going to be a game. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's not going to even be a game. We know they're going to dismantle the Cowboys. Then afterwards, as you can imagine, my Twitter went silent from Cowboys fans. I haven't heard a peep from them over the last 72 hours.
Of course. Well, my biggest thing, too, with the Cowboy fans just don't get it. And they keep playing. Granted, they'd be so much better if Romo and Dez weren't hurt, and I get that injuries. Nobody wants to hear about injuries when you're the Dallas Cowboys. You know what you're getting in Romo. You know what you're getting in Dez. And don't come calling the Giant or Eagle fans about injuries either. I mean, the Giants already have their best player on defense has lost a finger. So, I mean, you got to take what you can get. But they had no shot. Now it looks like Matt Castle probably ends up playing from what I read against the Giants in 2 weeks. And they're probably going to rush Dez Bryant back. They're totally collapsing, falling apart. And it's funny how somebody went from being the most gifted thrower ever to probably riding the bench again in 2 weeks.
I mean, that really, when Jerry says that about Brandon Weeden, we'll never stop playing that on the show because it just underlines how little credibility he has when he talks about anything.
Right.
And didn't you think it was weird that Phil Simms was so adamant at the end of the game that they're going to stick with Weeden? I'm like,
why is everybody protecting Weeden so much? Like, it's okay to say the guy sucks. Like, it's okay.
And it was like Simms had this inside information. Oh, they're definitely not making a switch. And I'm thinking, they're definitely making a switch. I don't know if Phil got bad information or the Cowboys, as you said, were protecting Weeden so not to get that speculation out there. But I'm like, You say Whedon threw for less than 200 yards in that game?
He just looks lost when he's the moment he just slides and ducks under the moment a pass rush comes. And you know the moment that they were going to bench Brandon Whedon was the moment Romo got hurt, and a couple days later they traded for Matt Castle, because if they really felt all that way about Whedon, they would have just rode with Whedon and Kellen Moore as the backup. They knew Whedon sucked. It was all a smokescreen from the get-go.
Definitely, and it makes you realize that completion percentage in the NFL and even your QBR means so little.
Of course.
Because Whedon, I think, was 24 of, say, 35 or something.
Does he have the Cowboys record in that first game he played with most completions in a row to start a game or whatever it was? That's going to be in Cowboy lore?
Yeah, he can throw for days under 7 yards, but so can anybody in the NFL.
Right. The
moment he threw anything 15 yards or deep, it was scattershot, it was over his head, it was intercepted. I mean, it was a joke. So, I don't want to hear about completions in a row or your QBR or whatnot, because it doesn't matter if you throw everything 10 yards underneath. You have to be able to go downfield at some point, and if you can't, it's a joke. And we completed, I think, 24 passes for $188. I mean, give me a break.
It's a disgrace. It's a disgrace. And one of the biggest myths the Cowboys and the Cowboys fans tried to sell everybody when Romo went down was their defense will be good enough to win them games. And guess what? They got Greg Hardy back, and Greg Hardy was a factor. Their defense still was totally toyed with by the Patriots. They're just not good. That's not a great defense. That's a defense that can't win you a game. That's a defense that needs a really good offense to make up for their deficiencies. And the Cowboys look totally lost right now.
Yeah, I think last year everybody kept talking about the Cowboys defense, and granted they were improved, but they had come from total crap. So they got improved to decent, but last year also was a lot of smoke and mirrors with that defense. The offensive line of the running game kept the defense off the field all the time. And so this year, when the offensive line isn't as good and they can't run the football as well, and you've got Brandon Whedon, the defense is out there far more, and they're getting exposed for it.
It's a disgrace. It's an absolute disgrace. Well, on that note, D, I'm going to let you go. I know I kept you a little longer. We'll let you get going to your tailgate so you can actually, have a day off while I continue to work and hold down the mothership here.
All right. Well, tell Kincaid hello. I don't know who these haters are in the newsroom, but tell them I'm coming back to the newsroom to kick ass coming up on Wednesday.
For a little Bart Scott Wednesday.
That's right. Bart Scott Wednesday. That's right.
All right. Well, take care, DA.
All right, man. Talk to you later.
All right, welcome into Side B of the Permission Granted podcast. Man, I'm hosting the crossover. I'm hosting Side B. Yes, that's right. This is Sean Mraz, the executive producer of the DA Show on CBS Sports Radio, joined by the now tan and glowing Joltin Joe D'Aloisio. Joe, how are you?
Mraz, I am doing great. It's wonderful to be back. I wish I was still in Titletown. But, man, did I have a great time out there.
Yeah, you came in red as a tomato with a pink shirt. Nice job by you, a little red into pink. And you told me it was the hottest game in October ever in Green Bay?
Now, I don't know if that's a true fact, but, dude, did it seem like it was the hottest game ever played in October in Green Bay. By the end of the fourth quarter, it was 80 degrees.
That's crazy.
The sun was beating on us. I was sweating like a dog.
Jeez, that is crazy. Well, I'm going to get to a couple quick, bulletin board points here. Number one, before we get to anything in the game, anything with the stadium, something we focused on the Permission Granted podcast for quite some time now, meeting up with Pac fan Joel in Green Bay. Did it happen? How did it happen? And what was it like?
All right, yes, it did happen.
Okay.
So Joel and I follow each other on Twitter. He messaged me asking me what I was doing on this past Saturday.
Okay.
I told him I was heading to the stadium to go to the get a tour, go to the Hall of Fame, and then I would stop by the Packer Pro Shop. So he told me that he'd be in the area, so to just holler at him whenever,
Just holler at him.
Yeah, just shoot him a text or a message on Twitter when I was done with everything, and maybe we'd be able to meet in the Pro Shop. So Joel actually contacted me around 2 p.m. Central Time and was like, "Hey, buddy, I'm in the Pro Shop. I know you're still probably on your tour, but if you head down this way, just look for me, all right, buddy?" So I said, "No problem." I walk right into the Pro Shop. Who's there? Joel.
And he was yelling and screaming for you.
Yelling and screaming, man. He was so happy to see me.
Oh, good for him.
He made me feel like a celebrity.
Oh, I'm glad somebody does.
Yeah, because nobody else does here, obviously.
He's the celebrity.
If you would have heard what he was saying about me in front of all those people in the Packer Pro Shop, you would have thought I was like some famous radio host. I'm a nobody.
Were there any hot chicks down in Bratwurst looking at you going, oh, this guy?
Nothing but fat chicks who look like they just came off the farm.
Chubby chicks. Come on.
Fat chicks that just came off the farm.
Not every chick in Green Bay is a fat chick coming out of the barn.
Not everyone, but I mean.
The majority?
There were certainly some heavy-set ladies there.
So Green Bay is full of heavy hitters on the girls' scene. So if you were going for a bachelor party, you wouldn't recommend going to Lambeau to meet a bunch of chicks?
Absolutely not. No. The only thing you could do in Lambeau is go see the Packers.
Okay. All right. And the game itself, obviously, you see a big Packer win, another James Jones touchdown. Stadium and atmosphere, how was it rocking? Was it good?
It was amazing. A little bit over 78,000 people there. It's just phenomenal it's more than just a football team.
Right.
It's seriously a community. I know here in New York, it's like you never see people always wearing like Giants and Jets gear.
Right.
There, every store you went into, every bar, everything was Packers. Everything had something to do with Green Bay. It seemed like just such a big, welcoming community. It was great.
Now, what did you end up ordering at the Brett Favre Steakhouse? You went, right?
Yeah, we went to the Brett Favre Steakhouse. I went with, first we had an appetizer. We had some bruschetta.
Okay. All right. You can roll with that.
And we had a assortment of different types of cheeses and crackers.
Oh, they do. So they do, because it's Wisconsin, because it's Green Bay, at these restaurants, they will go with like a cheese platter.
Yes.
Like that seems very foreign, in New York, it's, break up the calamari and potato skins.
No, and
they're doing, Gouda and provolone.
Exactly. Some Gouda, some cheddar, some gorgonzola. It was a nice mix.
Oh, look, gorgonzola.
It was a nice mix. It was good. And then, yes, I went with the filet mignon.
Mm-hmm.
And I went with a baked potato. But my cousins got some, I remember last time I spoke about the garlic mash.
Yes.
So, took a little scoop of their garlic mash.
You were just picking at your cousin's plate.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Like a heathen.
Absolutely. And then my other cousin got a rack of ribs. And I was going to let her finish them, so I helped her out a little bit.
Okay.
Delicious.
Rack of ribs is the way to go. Rack of ribs is the way to go.
Now, I'm not a big ribs guy because I hate barbecue sauce, but these were freaking awesome.
I actually had a rack of ribs on Saturday, but we don't have enough time to get into my Saturday story. I'm going to say that for next week's podcast because something happened to me after eating a rack of ribs at a certain restaurant that will live in infamy for the rest of my life, and that's a tease for next week's Permission Grant
I could
podcast.
only imagine how quick you ran to the bathroom.
Well, something like that. I listen, there's too much that went on movie style for this to be rushed.
Oh, unbelievable.
So we're gonna wait on that. What else did you eat over in Green Bay?
So food-wise or like different establishments?
Food-wise.
Food-wise, cheese curds. You got to go with the cheese curds when
sounds
you go out.
Sounds like a walking fart waiting to happen.
They were deadly.
Oh, yeah?
They were deadly. Cheese curds, some burgers. I went all out.
What did you eat at the stadium?
You know what? I actually did not eat anything at the stadium. I just drank. I just had beers.
And you guys didn't really tailgate, right?
No, we didn't really tailgate because my cousins are younger. It wasn't worth the price for them to have unlimited beers and sodas. So we had a big breakfast at the hotel and then just went right to the stadium. Went in early to try to, And
then what'd you do, like a dinner afterwards or something?
Yeah, right after we went to dinner.
Okay. Well, you know what? That works. It's a noon start time there, right?
Yes.
The early game. Well, Joe, I'm glad to have you back. I'm glad that Pack fan Joel got to see you there. And, we have DA off doing his little Citi Field tour. DA next weekend is going to head to LP Field. I believe that's still what they call for the Titans-Dolphins. So now, by the time next week comes, we'll have DA making a Tennessee Titans road trip. You making the Packers road trip, me making the Dallas road trip, covering a lot of ground here in the NFL season.
Isn't it amazing?
It is amazing. It is amazing. Well, that's going to wrap it up here for the Permission Granted podcast. Check out Joe D at
Joe D CBS
on the Twitter. Me at Mraz CBS. And don't forget, Up the Gut, we're rolling, baby. We're 9-1 now in the last 3 weeks, 12-4 on the year. If you look at pick NFL games, check me out on Twitter at Mraz CBS. That's the second plug in 2 seconds. So I'm glad you'll enjoy that. Take care, everybody.